Hey guys, welcome back to My Sixth Sense. Kind of a bonus episode. I don't usually have some kind of steady guests. I've got another guest for you. His name is Damien. Just a lot of interesting stuff that he's about. So, Damien, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, my name is Damien Dubose. I'm a financial professional from Baltimore, Maryland, residing in the Washington D.C. area right now. And author of America's Ethical Archetype, where I discuss some foundational, I guess, understanding of what leads to kind of the political situation that we might find ourselves in today. I talk about politics from a philosophical and psychological point of view to try to give some insight into how we can address some of the issues that we face.
Dude, that's awesome. I mean, listen. The last guest I had was, like I told you, about outrage politics, and that's such an interesting, almost like a tribalism point of view, which I
Right.
find to be very interesting because it's like people can't come to. I believe that there are more people that are together. I believe that we aren't as far apart as whoever you want to call they are, but they believe, right? Like, does that make any sense? I
I hear
think
that.
that,
Yes.
yeah, I think that there's definitely a good bit of tribalism in this country, but it was just a very interesting conversation, as I assume this is totally going to be. And interestingly enough, I'm from the DMV.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Originally from Virginia, so I know right where you're. I like know right where you're at. It said on your thing, said from DC or lives in DC, and I'm like, oh, I know right where he is. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so here, so let's actually, you know what? I had my first question actually written down.
Okay.
What's the biggest problem facing America politically, like currently?
I would say the biggest. Oh,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
now I would say the biggest problem is that we don't have a firm foundation and a firm understanding of the principles um, that we operate on in America. And so that, to me, if you address that, then you can address a lot of the ills that um, flow from that lack of a foundation. So that's to me that's the foundational issue.
Okay, and when you say like a foundation, you mean like you're about ethics, so like an ethical
Right.
foundation, or okay, all right.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I can expound on it a little bit if you want me to. Sorry, I gotta cut. Oh no.
right.
Yeah, it's. I think a lot of people don't understand. Let me try to give an example. I know a lot of people sometimes will say, "Well, uh, capitalism or Americanism operates on certain foundations that have been proven wrong, or just I guess American imperialism or things like of that nature." And if you don't have a firm defense of or the ability to firmly defend the principles that undergird the ideas that you hold, then yeah, you have no foundation to fight from. So you don't really know who you are to say this is right or that is wrong. You could just say
Sure.
everybody has an opinion, and that's all we have.
Right. Right. That's it's super accurate too. Um, when you define like ethical leadership, why do you believe that's just so crucial for like our current state and in especially like America, especially this country?
I mean, I would say that it's been critical forever, and I, I would say that I took the ethical approach to approaching politics. I know politics to me seems like a more popular topic, and for me, and I've learned this through my learnings and understanding that
Yeah.
ethics sits below politics. But the thing about it is
Correct. Yeah.
politics involves force, and they can get you to do what they want you to do based upon a collective force, and that's where a lot of people really will recognize it. But the basic issue is that what undergirds that idea, what undergirds our laws, what do we believe is right or wrong to have us create a law that would be able that would make us able to punish people physically. And so
I
that's the
I completely agree, and we usually here at My Sixth Sense we usually record me and my co-host today. on Sundays
Mhm.
at 11:30, and that's something we just quite literally just talked about was
Mm.
like laws, right? To say that it was in reference to something geopolitical, but it's like, are they going to use, well, that's the law, that's what we have to do? And
Right.
me and my co-host Sean's like, no, okay, laws aren't, just because they're the law doesn't mean that they're right.
Right. That's true.
I.e. slavery, right? I mean, like,
That's true too.
right? I mean,
Right.
there's so many things that, like, these are made up. I
Exactly.
would say, like, it doesn't make them inherently moral and inherently ethical. It just means they're there. Like, for,
Right.
again, me being a libertarian, like, smoking weed, like, it was a class 1 felony. It was, it's like,
Right.
it's listed as this horrendous thing, but the reality is it's not. And I really do agree, especially with your outlook on politics, is you don't think of the word ethics is in a thesaurus with the word political, because just like you said, they
Right.
can kind of get you to do anything if, I guess maybe if the price is right. I'm not terribly sure. I guess so. Just another question is, what role does the education play in shaping ethical leaders? We don't even for the
Uh,
future, but just like, how do we learn from that?
I think it really does for me, the way I speak about it. I think it really does involve the future, just because the way that a child's mind works early on. I mean, just like you kind of broke down. Once we get older, we have a lot of assumptions about things that aren't necessarily true, but we've made them that way, right? Because of the ideals that we've held, because of the principles that we hold, or because of the values that we have. And so, if you grow up with a poor set of values, y- you know, you, you could get stuck that way. Or if you grow up with a situation that damages you psychologically, you can get stuck in a way that you think some things that you might think something might be ideal, but it isn't ideal, for life.
Sure.
So I think it's very important for children, because it's just at that early age, they're able to take in information and be able to use that. If it's good information, use it as a lifelong process, and it becomes a second sense in the sense as well. Um, I guess the educational piece. I think a lot of people, even adults, don't fully understand what's at the root of, especially when I talk about in my book, I'm talking about America specifically. They don't understand what's at the root of American politics. And I will say that I learned a lot of, well, not say learned a lot, but I delved deeply into Ayn Rand and objectivism, and a lot of the ideas that I agree with, or I think that she got to the heart of them. I wouldn't say that I take them all the way, wholesale, but that's something that I examined in my book.
Right.
And I just wanted to say that, yeah, you need to understand what is at the base of why we do things, and that will help you get to the higher level reasons why we put these things in place, like institutions, laws, and things like that, and the way that we set up our laws.
And it's just like a huge topic. It's such a large and all-encompassing
True, but that's a good
thing.
thing, though.
It is a great thing, and it can be inspected, and it can be learned and taught. It's not something that's just inherently there. It can be changed and molded. It's not something
Right.
that with books like this. I know we're like working kind of backwards. I'm about to get to your book, but
It's okay.
yeah, so it's people like you who are writing about it and helping others understand it. It's a huge undertaking. Just like
That's
you
true.
said, these certain institutions that we have currently in America are, think about this, we're just a small part of the globe.
Right.
So we're not the only machine that's pumping. So
True.
so tell me about your book. Tell me what okay, I guess what I want to know is,
Okay.
why did you choose such a large subject matter? What Okay, so like my daughter has type 1 diabetes, right?
Okay.
She got diagnosed at 1, and so you have to go to a pediatric endocrinologist. I
Mhm.
think those people have a mental disorder because you have to be nuts to go into that type of medicine. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
first off, the endocrine system is crazy, but
Okay.
much less a child's endocrine system, right? You've
Right.
chosen this area of expertise that is humongous. And so what did you like when were you like, you know what? I'm going to become an expert in the most gigantic area of of
Uh,
uh of American politics, really, honestly.
I mean, I
Like, what pushed you to
didn't
write that?
get. I mean, I guess it was just something. I don't know. I was compelled. I was compelled because I felt like I saw
Perfect
something.
answer, dude. Keep going. Perfect answer.
Yeah, I mean, I felt compelled because I felt like I saw something and could possibly explain something in a way that most people couldn't explain. Um, to go to the first part of your question is that I grew up Christian, right? And so
Hmm.
morals and values was important to me as a child. And but being the type of person that I am, I needed to understand why. And and within like mystical beliefs, it's not there's an element there's a level that you hit that there's no more why. It's just things are. Um
Because it
and
is
it's
so.
exactly it just is so it's so. And it just not, it wasn't good it's not good enough for me. So that kind of started me on the book and then just understanding a little bit about philosophy and then understanding some about psychology. And then I started I came into understanding about Ayn Rand at some point in time, and I talked about that in my book. And I came to understanding some elements of Carl Jung at some point in time, and I talked about that in my book. But when I kind of juxtapose these two things together, they don't have a similar, well, they don't have overlap in their work really, but you can see how these two things or two systems of thought overlap. And what I was able to do was kind of triangulate and say, oh, no, this is why we do what we do, or this is why we hold these certain principles. Like and just to kind of give an example to kind of make it a little bit more clear.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
You just said that, America is not the only country in the world. And to me, I look at countries like I would kind of look at people. Like they have their own identity and their own purpose and their own values. And they don't really necessarily mix. And I guess to say the last part in front is that America chose independence. And that's not consistent with the history of the world. And so therefore, that's a different culture that we've grown and created. And that doesn't necessarily mesh with everything else that you see out there. And if you
Sure.
don't understand that, then you won't understand, well, why can't America be like everywhere else? Americans chose independence.
It
That's what
can't
they
be.
chose. Yeah.
That that's really fascinating and completely also correct, and something I really haven't thought about. Um, Definitely read Iron Rand, but um, yeah, that's interesting. I don't think a lot of people just kind of think about that. I mean, of course, there
Yeah.
are some smaller countries that have chose that route, but nothing as large or the what do you call it? The experiment. What do they call
Right.
America? The greatest
Great
experiment
experiment.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Constitution, ideas, individual
we have
rights.
gained we have gained a lot of perspective over the years and lived through a whole bunch of stuff. And it's strange to me that sometimes we just like can't uh, move forward. Um,
I mean, if you were to say that people don't understand that that is at the root of the country, then I would say it's kind of I wouldn't say it's easy, but I can understand why we can't move forward because we don't know what's at the root. I guess the foundational ground principle that helps us to grow from. Because if you're not growing from that same foundational principle, then you're going to butt heads. It's just inevitable.
I
So
agree. Yeah, dude. I totally agree. So how does, I guess in this entire realm, how does philosophy mix with ethics in something, well, I guess it makes more sense in politics, but I mean, just like generally speaking, I don't know how to say that correctly. Like some misconceptions about ethics in like American society, or psychology and philosophy. Yeah, go ahead. You try it. I know that sounds like a strange question, but if you,
no, I mean, so I'll try to give you a complex answer simply.
okay.
I mean, I will say in objectivism and Ayn Rand's work, what she deals with is 5 areas of philosophy: is metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, politics, and aesthetics. And what she does is she builds, basically metaphysics is just a base view of the world. What is existence? What is just the basic existence there? And epistemology is the theory of knowledge. And then from those 2 pieces that we put together, we come up with a system of ethics. This is from kind of like what she's saying. And that's more of okay, we know these things. This is how we know these things. And because we know these things, what should we do? That's pretty much what it is. And then the politics piece is how you concretize your ethics, more or less. It's just saying that, okay, this thing is right, and therefore we'll put in a system to penalize or punish people who don't adhere to this system, a way that we think. And the reason why I gravitated towards Jung, I was deeply into personality types. But when I started reading Jung, I started to understand that, oh wow, Jung's work really digs deep into the foundational 2 elements of Ayn Rand's philosophy. Now, it's not metaphysics and it's not epistemology. And I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible.
No, you go.
Okay,
hear
cool. And so, kind of like metaphysics, in her view, it's the way we think about things. It's related to our experience in life. And so it's just, you have a sense of life, and then you have a personal philosophy. And this is what Jung delves into when he talks about rational and irrational functions within our psychology. And so I just used Jung to give a more detailed view of what's at the root of how we perceive things, what's the history of how we got to how our brains work, and then just say, okay, that's how those 2 pieces lead up to the way that we create our ethics, and that ethics will lead up to the way that we, execute our politics. So it's just a way to kind of like expand out the bottom piece, and takes the ethics to the politics piece, because you need to. Not everyone needs to know it, but to me, someone needs to help, and someone needs to help us to get to that point to really say, to examine it, I guess.
Yeah. And again, it's a big undertaking. It's not
true.
Both of the authors that you have referenced are not just some children's books. They are some of the most tough reads.
True.
Just kind of in my opinion, I'm a kind of a big book guy, and Ayn Rand is not the easiest read. Just kind of like, have you ever read The Road to Serfdom?
I've listened to some of it
by Hayek. It is really difficult. It's like you'd rather, I don't know, have a dinner date with your ex than some of it. I honestly had to get it on an audiobook because I just kept waking up every morning on the same page and being like repeating myself over and over. But yeah, so huge undertaking, in 2 authors that are extremely knowledgeable in their fields.
Right.
My next question, you've already answered 2 of those in there, but my next one would be, how can we foster a national dialogue on ethics and morality in the, I'll go with current political climate, because it's so charged. it's difficult to talk to anybody about anything right now for whatever reason. I pride myself on trying to talk to people of all types and personalities, but it's difficult. So
Right. So
I mean, a national dialogue is kind of a large statement. Maybe we go with like a. How do you start? What would you call it, like a regional or a community? Like how do you start there? Like what would your
so I'm gonna have to take a little bit of a step back, just because I think there's just different levels to everything. I mean, like you said in the beginning, I think for me, I genuinely believe that most people are good, basically. That's my basic.
I believe this too.
But what I will say as well is leadership matters a lot. And so when you say when I say national dialogue, or you say I think it does need to rise to that level, because then we're talking about leadership. Then we're talking about the perception of the group, in a sense, right? And to the first part of what you're saying is, how do we foster that? I think that there's a unique opportunity right now. Just because, like you said, it's an odd time. It's a very odd time. And
yes,
we have, I have to just be honest about the way that I say
Go ahead. Yeah.
We
please.
have groups of people who don't want to talk, like, either you agree with me or you're a bad person, which is not helpful.
Right? No, it's not.
And then you've got other people who may kind of like, I don't know, harken back to older ways of doing things, or older ideologies that make people feel comfortable. And I don't know how helpful that is either, but it does remind us of order, I guess I would say.
Sure.
So I think it's just an opportunity, because I see some people who like to say, they like to appeal to science, or appeal to intelligence, or appeal to education, and think that, that's everything. And I mean, I think those things are very important. But I mean, how you can't tell me that all people who aren't
say what you're thinking, dude.
You can't tell me that all people who aren't fully educated, they're just bad people just because they aren't fully educated, right?
Listen, I have so many people. I like, you're a huge reader. If you pick up Ayn Rand or Jan, you're probably a guy or a gal who's read books. And it is so interesting to me when people are just like, well, you didn't go to college. It's like, yeah, I'm not trying to be a brain surgeon.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to be, I just want to, when a conversation comes up about, say, like, I know, for me, it's like, I know nothing about Ukraine. The first thing I'm going to go do is go look at like the top 10 books on Ukraine that people suggest, and then read those. And it's like, you're like 1,000% right. Where people are just like, well, where's your master's? And you're like, I don't have a master's, but I'm also just very knowledgeable because, and I think you're honestly, to that point, I think you're starting to kind of see that.
Yeah, I think you see it. I think it needs some structure,
but it could be bad. I'm just saying there are bad parts of this. There are not. This is not a 100% on the rise. The yeast is activated and the dough is rising. It can be and has been and is, in just my opinion, used for bad when you get. Everyone's not moral, and I'm not claiming to be any type of moral above anyone or whatever, but everyone is not ethically approved, if that's the right word, or morally just in everything they say. But some people do believe that. So, to your point. So keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just I completely agree with that whole line there.
Yeah. So I mean, the end point for me is just that there's some space politically to introduce some new ideas, because I think we're kind of at a bit of a stalemate. If I were to say that there's a stalemate, there's like, I wouldn't say a de facto leader, but Uh,
Yeah.
it's the ideas over here don't compete with the ideas over here because they don't listen, and you need to listen. And so, if you want to be, and I'm not trying to state people by name, but if you want to be the party of intellectuals and the party of science and the party of this, that, and the other, okay, let's take an intellectual look at cognition and how people think, and what is at the core root of American mentality.
I agree. Like I told you, the last guest I had, he's like, my final question to him was like, what's your one suggestion for folks if they can't determine if they're like, being sucked into these, like white hot issues that people just can't converse about, you know what I'm saying? Cause it's either, it shouldn't be black and white. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be right or wrong. It should be like, hey, let's discuss this. And he's like, man, what did he say? He said, I, at night, if I feel like I'm in a doom scroll, like when I get in bed, instead of doom scrolling, like say I'm in a doom scroll for like 15 minutes and then fall asleep, or like whatever it is you do, at night.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I spend that exact time trying to steel man the opposition. So he'll like, if he thinks like, I don't know, like if you just pick a very, very white hot social issue that we have going on right now that, maybe you're on super on one side and you're just like, there is no moving the needle. He's like, find articles, like Google articles that support the opposite, which I thought was just a fantastic idea, because I think that we are, again, we have discussed this, but I think we are closer than it's like a rear view mirror. We are closer than we may appear. Things in your review mirror might be closer than they appear.
Right.
And I think that you're absolutely right. I think that public debate is so necessary to either change your philosophy or your, I don't know what another synonym for that is, but yeah, go ahead.
Acceptance. It's changed, not just to public debate, to public defeat too. Public defeat.
Sure, dude. Sure. Absolutely.
Defeat.
Which is, dude, that's the toughest of them all, right? Because it's probably the most public.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, what kind of a person likes to get the, kicked out of them on live TV or like, whatever.
That's true. I just don't know. Just kind of speak to your point.
Yeah.
I think I'm just a little bit different. So I think that understanding other people's points of view is a good thing. I think that
agree.
It's a great thing to try to understand. For me, the part of the reason why I did the work is that I could get to a base general understanding of, I wouldn't want to call it a theory of everything, but that's the point.
Is that a title for your next book?
That would be stealing from Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, I was just about to say, isn't that a movie or something?
Yeah, but no, but when you ask me like such a big topic, why am I involved in it? Because to me, philosophy was the thing that was supposed to give us the alternative to religion and a holistic view of life and good and bad. And if we aren't doing philosophy well, then we don't have an alternative to the mystical Jesus, God, Quran, whatever you want to, whatever, insert your deity, whatever here.
He, him, whatever.
Yeah. And so therefore, I mean, it's probably more, but I can't say that you have to believe in my supernatural being. I can't do that. And so I just want to give people an opportunity to say, hey, this is at the root of who we are. We have a country based around individualism. Let's define that. Let's say we need people to be individuals. We need people to be selves. We need people to make decisions. And if you kind of go through my book, it starts to pull apart the pieces of this is what makes an individual. Just you being born doesn't make you an individual. Being a rational individual is about decision making. You have to make decisions and you have to own your decisions and your consequences. And that's what makes you an individual. And that's what is at the root of the country. And so therefore it just builds apart all of this story. So it kind of gives you a root, I don't know, from seed to tree type of view of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true, and I think somewhere along the lines we get grouped into I don't want to call them tribes, but
Well,
I think those individual choices.
Yeah, I mean,
they shouldn't. Like, I don't think they should. I think that we should.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Damn.
No, you don't. Listen, no, you're the guy. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying
Keep
that
speaking.
The one thing I also would like to help people understand is that when you read Jung, you understand that we don't develop into tribes. More or less, we more or less come from the tribal mentality. The tribal mentality was an older mentality. He will equate children with primitives, people, cavemen. And then, what we've learned over history is what helps us develop a child to what we now would consider a psychological individual. So when I always I talk about this with a friend of mine frequently. It's just that I don't want to make the assumption that people are either born good or people who should know better when they get older. No, it's our job to help them develop to that point. And if they don't do it, it just means that we didn't help them or they didn't get there. It didn't mean that they got there and then they lost it. No, they just never attained it. So I just always I think that helps me understand it more. I don't know.
Do you think it's because some people just didn't want it? Like it was there for I'm just saying it was taught to them and they're just like, I don't want to equate this to Star Wars. That sounds absolutely ridiculous, but you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, here's this gift. Like, I guess we can say it like that. Here's this gift of being slightly moral. And the person is just like, you know what? I don't want that.
I don't think that that's
you believe that it's because they just have not. And let me say this one thing. The word ignorance, and ignorance is not a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, the reason they're this way is because of the ignorance to,
it could be ignorance,
morality or something like that.
It's a few different things. There's an element of I don't want to do it because some people don't understand because there are no direct consequences. So, like, if I were to just teach a child, if I go to school and I just teach a kid concepts, and I never apply those concepts to reality, then
sure,
a kid sometimes is going to think, "What is this thing?" Like, if it doesn't apply to reality, then why do I care? You're telling me do this and I'll be good, and do that and I'll be good, but this person doesn't do it. And what happened to them? And they got money, they got paid, they got women. How does what you're teaching me apply to reality? And if that doesn't connect, then I'm not fully blaming the kids to say this is BS. You're just teaching me stuff just because you're teaching me stuff. But if you
maybe it's in the way we're teaching it. Yes, okay,
exactly.
I'm with you.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we need to teach people in a way that helps them connect. This is what makes a good person, because this is the relationship this activity has to our lives, and this is how it all connects. It's not just a concept of good or bad or moral or whatever. And on the last part, I know I'm kind of going on a little bit, but the last part,
please,
I will say is that the thing people have not learned, but they can see within society, when you get into groups of society, you don't have to solve all your problems if you can get other people to solve your problems for you. And that to me is what brought me to the politics piece, is because if you take from people who go out and work every day and take from them their money, which equates to their time, energy, and things, and take that money and give to people who choose not to do these things, then what's to make a person who chooses not to say that everybody's like that, but what is to make a person who chooses not to do these things say that what they're doing is wrong? They're getting payments. They're getting their lives taken care of by people who go out and do what they need to do to take care of themselves and them. So it's not a self-fulfilling thing. It's
very interesting.
In the future.
Right. Well, it's interesting because it's completely, the way that I think about it is different, but what you're saying is correct. It's and that is just because I do not know much about, I don't think like that. I don't think this way, which is very interesting. Like, instead of saying like, it's not because they don't want it, it's because everyone is kind of different and they just haven't been taught in that correct way. In a way that they can, that's right. In a way that can apply to them, to their own lives, instead of like I always say comparisons are the thief of all joy. You should be the best you. But in the same respect, if you're not being taught, that, you know, you're just right. That whole line is completely correct. So to wrap up here, okay. I just bought your book.
Thank you.
On Kindle. I'm gonna read it. And then I'm gonna email you, and then maybe we can do this again. And because I really, dude, I really enjoyed this. And did you want to give your book? I don't do this book justice. You wrote the book. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
What, with nothing attached, what, and I say this is like to be funny. If it's not, it's not. But what are your, because we were just talking about like how you can be a great author, you can be a great person. You do not need a PhD, a master's. Do you have any type of degrees or anything in this subject matter?
Not in the subject matter. I mean, logic, I guess I would think is something that logic to me works, but not.
Listen, dude,
I'm a financial professional.
I hope that's what you were going to say. That it's actually amazing, dude. And I hope people that are listening can appreciate that. And if you have a passion, you can follow it. You don't need to, unless you're a brain surgeon, please go to school. But if
exactly,
if you're a financial professional, but this philosophy and ethics interests you, you can do this. This isn't this. You can't see him right now, but just listening to him, or if you are watching, he knows what he's talking about. So if you want to just plug your book, because I didn't write it, like I said, and I'm like up here talking about it.
No, I mean, the book, the title was America's Ethical Archetype, and it's calling us Establishing the Psychology of Moral Authority and Correcting Our Country's Broken Politics. It's just a tool for anyone who wants to understand what's at the root of, I guess, American identity and political structure. And I wanted just to write it so people it could strengthen their resolve when they're faced with things that are opposed to their values. That's what I would say. And that's my goal.
And where can you buy it?
You can get the book on Amazon.com. Audible version is there as well. Or visit me on my website, DamienDubose.com. Yeah.
Okay. And I want to read you probably the best review of your book real quick. I don't know if you know this guy, but I'll start reading it and you can tell me if you actually know him. Or it's just a guy who wrote a tour de force that integrates psychology and philosophy in a way that makes both intelligible and applicable. Highly recommend for those interested in deep philosophical conversations and discussions. It highlights the importance of embracing an objective moral philosophy based on reason and an individual judgment of evidence with a goal of integrity. One can live out their personal morality within society in an ethical way. Never have I read a book which explains how philosophy, MBTI, and cognitive functions interact so seamlessly to create the bulk of observable behavior. If you have ever wanted to know what Jung was talking about or how it applies to your own life, this is the book for you. That's
appreciate that.
That's quite the review, dude. So no, I'm gonna sit down and read this tonight, man. Again, I'm gonna stop the recording and maybe we can exchange infos so I can get back to you. I really appreciate you coming on, dude.
No, I appreciate you having me, really. This was fun.